This is CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast with Joel Lindstrom, George Dubinsky, and Sean the CRM Hobbit Tabor. This week we have George giving us an update from the Ignite conference, and we have a special guest MVP, Matthew Wittemann from ClickDimensions. The listener spoke and we listened. This episode of CRM Audio is sponsored by Maplytics by iNowgic. Maplytics by iNowgic is a market-leading, certified for Microsoft Dynamics 365 geoanalytical mapping app. Maplytics empowers users with powerful map visualization and routing capabilities within Dynamics CRM to drive better sales, improve business processes, and engage the right customers at the right time. iNowgic is a leading Microsoft Gold Dynamics CRM ISV delivering the best-in-class Dynamics 365 solutions, as well as cost-effective and high-quality programming services. Thanks to Maplytics by iNowgic for sponsoring CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast. We did a survey of our listeners, our loyal listeners, wanting to know what the listeners have to say. Plus, I'm doing a session on Voice of the Customer surveys at CRMEG Summit, and I had to get some data, so it helped me with that too. But one of the questions we asked was, and I thought my favorite answer was, somebody said, turn down George's volume as much as possible.
Well, you're not going to hear me for long this time because I have a plane to catch.
Got it.
There you go. Then we met one request.
One of the questions was, who should we have on as a guest? And some of our feedback said Matt Wittemann from ClickDimensions. And so, not wanting to displease our loyal listeners, we invited Matt Wittemann on the podcast. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, how are you, Joel?
I'm doing.
Thanks.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Joe. Just a quick one. Was it anonymous survey?
It was anonymous, so that might have been Matt's response. I'm not sure.
Come on, Matt. Own up to it. Did you invite yourself?
Well, I saw one of the requests to have me on, and my name was spelled wrong, so I don't think that was me filling that in.
That was his plan.
Maybe it was evil plan to disguise yourself.
That could be.
So Matt, tell us about yourself for those who don't know you.
All right. Well, in the CRM world, I've been working with Microsoft CRM since, I guess the end of 2003 when 1.0 and then 1.2 was getting ready to come out. Actually didn't work with 1.0. I'm not sure anybody really did. But a few years after that, I was awarded MVP from Microsoft for a lot of the blogging I did and some other articles. And so I've been an MVP for 12 years. Used to run CRM consulting practice, and about 6 years ago, I joined ClickDimensions. At the time, was a startup. Been phenomenal growth, really exciting. Lots of changes in that time. I can't believe it's gone so quickly. But I do a lot of different things, and over the years have worn a lot of different hats at ClickDimensions, building our support team and our training teams there, doing a lot of documentation and helping our product team and developers, talking with customers and partners. And actually next week I start in a new role. I'm going to be building a pre-sales engineering team, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Nice. So you mentioned when we invited you, you mentioned that you would be relaxing and drinking a stout drink today during the podcast. So what are you drinking right now?
That's true. Actually, I have a lemon lime seltzer. That's not very stout.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually out doing yard work, and I finished all the beer last night, so I have no beer to sit down during the interview, so I had to opt for seltzer.
Well, our guests generally find a strong drink prepares them to talk to George, so it's a good idea.
I'm going to need a strong one afterwards, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, conversely, they need several to listen to it. So.
Yeah, so to start with, how many of us were at the Ignite conference this week?
Of us,
George was there. Matt, were you there?
No, I was not there.
Okay, but I hear that our names were on the wall. They had an MVP wall, and I got several
The
people
writing was
sent me.
on the wall. Yes.
So George, since you were the host that was at the conference, what were the big takeaways? I know there was a ton of stuff announced and a lot of tweets coming out of it, but what, if you were to sum it up into major themes, what do you think this shows for what's coming down the road? What's the biggest announcements you heard?
Well, for starters, now I know how Yuka tweets so fast. I've seen him working during the presentations. I've seen him in action. So now I know. Every presentation Yuka posts like 75 tweets on the topic. I've seen him in action. He's got like 3 devices going at the same time. But back to subject at hand, like what Microsoft. There were corporate messages, big messages. Microsoft 365, like strong message about that. That's kind of reincarnation of the workplace, if you will. So bringing together Office 365, Windows 10, Intune's mobile platform, so for workforce. So that was a strong message. Of course, there's Azure and platform, so platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, all that. Strong message in data and AI. They showed like glimpses of what Microsoft is working on. They brought on stage a very impressive lineup of scientists who are working on quantum computing. So, and they've got going the whopping 40 qubits, which Leon says is not enough, but it's a large number. For those who don't know, qubit, it's equivalent of a bit in quantum computing, but it's infinitely more powerful than contains infinite amount of information as compared to a bit. So
how many qubits does Leon say we need?
Oh, that I didn't ask, but he says 40 is not enough, so obviously we need more than that. But the message for us, for Dynamics 365, is as far as Enterprise Edition is concerned, it's business as usual. So we continue towards customer engagement plus apps like talent, retail, and customer engagement would be sales, service. So it's all being divided into apps even stronger than before. But the biggest one, of course, confirmed that Business Edition gone, truly gone. There will be no Business Edition. A lot of people kind of exhaled with the relief because we all know it wasn't kind of thought through idea, not entirely coherent idea. I think it was born in marketing, which Matt, I'm sure, will tell you more about.
Well, but the big takeaway is because last week there was a lot of hubbub with Steve Mordu's blog and things that came out of the Directions Conference. But when the dust all settled and the official announcements came out, yeah, the term Business Edition is gone and the current marketing message around it is gone. But they still have the intention of having a lower price point license for smaller companies.
Yes, but
with
it's
more
not
limited
going to be
functionality.
correct. But it's not going to be restricted in any sense. So, and if there are any restrictions, you can easily remove them by paying more. So if you need something else, you just buy it. You add to your package of your apps, if you will, right? So it's just consumption based. Before it was artificially partitioned into some predefined packages. For example, we would have had in Business Edition, we would have had marketing, right? Which wouldn't be in Enterprise Edition. And of course, that upset enterprise customers. And again, Matt will tell you more about it, because not all people need Adobe scale of the solution, right?
Right. Yeah, we definitely want to get into the marketing topic. The thing, and I watched some of the videos, though I wasn't there, and the thing that really blew my mind was the business app platform and what they were showing. Basically, stuff we have now with CRM, with the data structure and laying out forms and security models. The message that appeared to be this type of functionality is coming to Power Apps, SharePoint, and applications across the Microsoft stack.
Look, if I have to speculate, then I'd say that we might see the reappearance of the old idea of XRM as a platform. Remember a few years back, there was a strong desire to have XRM as a platform, and particular vendors, ISVs, were asking for it, because I said, look, don't give us anything. We don't need marketing, we don't need customer service, we don't need sales. We want to build, let's say, HR application, Dynamics for Talent, right? And we didn't have it. We didn't get this edition. But now it seems to be that a lot of internal ask for a similar platform. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the future we'll see, in some shape or form, XRM as a platform making its way into Power Apps, or I don't know, front end in CDS, or SharePoint, and so on and so forth. So it will become kind of your business API within the Microsoft, and that would be awesome.
It seems like the message with Power Apps is turning into, hey folks, all you folks with your homegrown access-based databases and systems, recreate them as a Power App, move it to Power Apps.
I have to report that the demo of the talk, Convert Your Access into Power Apps, the demo burned hard. So, that wasn't the only demo that burned, but
at which point George jumped up and said, let me show you how to do it in WordPress.
I actually did talk on WordPress, and I received accolades how super sweet the talk was.
Right.
Anyway, so I did two small talks in the theater, like community theater.
Here's what I want to see is, taking Power Apps and where it is right now. And I think, for a lot of the stuff like Power Apps and CDS, the marketing message and the hype got ahead of where the platform really was. And it feels like they're taking the steps to make the platform actually live up to what some of the initial hype was.
The last session I attended was on Logic Apps, and I didn't dig into Logic Apps. I haven't been sort of digging into Logic Apps for about a month. And I have to say, within a month, they managed to create some awesome things. And I was sitting there, I couldn't help myself thinking, I wish I had Logic Apps as my workflow editor. And then I approached program manager for Logic Apps, and I said, what's the story? Did you guys even think about maybe Logic Apps can be used in Dynamics? And he said the most pleasantly surprised things. He said, we are talking to Dynamics guys. We do want Logic Apps become the kind of Microsoft workflow engine of choice across the enterprise. The only thing is holding it back is on premises.
Yeah, so I think that was good. I mean, I think having Flow in there shows it's possible. And
about that, I said, well, we've got a project where we need to mix Flow and Logic Apps. How that is going to work? And he said, look, you know that you can take Flow definition and import it into Logic Apps. But what you can now do, you can create a Logic app, package it, and make it available within Flow for consumption.
Nice.
right? So that's cool. So you can actually package some really complex flows inside Logic apps and then give it to business users, to your flow users as prepackaged, prepackaged executions.
Nice. Nice. Well, George, I know you got to catch a plane, but I hope that guy who blasted you doesn't go to CRMEG Summit. That was George with our noisy Ignite update.
Well, what he was doing is he didn't want to say anything, but he was actually creating a sword from raw materials as he was doing his update.
Yes.
So
he was smelting.
Yeah.
All right, so Matt, well, I guess before that, the big news is we can now say that the general availability for Dynamics 365 version 9 is going to be sometime in the next week, first week of October, which will be this week when you listen to this podcast. Who knows, it might be out by now, so in some regions. So I think you were all really excited about it. I've been playing with it for a long time, and the delays, I think, have turned out to be a positive because Microsoft has been able to fix a lot of the bugs, and they've got a ton of bugs that have been reported, and all of us reported some, and they've been really good about turning those around. But it's given me more time than I've usually had when we've had shorter preview programs to really get into it. And I've gotten into the mobile and the unified user interface. And I got to say, I'm becoming a pretty big fan of the unified user interface. I'm not saying it's for everybody, and I'm not going to be everybody has to go to UUI right now, but I think there's so much that it brings to mobile because it's just having the consistent experience, but also I had the realization that, you know what, now that mobile and UUI are the same, that means that all this stuff that is mobile only today, like these great visual controls, like the multimedia where you can embed a YouTube video or the sliders or the signature controls. That means you can use all that stuff and task flows. You can use all that in the browser too. So it's really everybody, mobile users are benefiting and web and PC and browser users are benefiting too.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff you could really do with that, and I'm actually trying to figure out in one of my current engagements how we're going to leverage that and really make some fancy stuff. So I'm excited about it.
How about you, Matt? What have you been spent the most time with in the preview, and what is your takeaway?
Well, so with every preview that comes out from Microsoft, the main thing as an ISV that we're concerned with is just the solution framework and compatibility. So that's always the first thing on my list that I dive into. And they continue to make improvements in the solution framework and its stability. We, as an ISV, we're always concerned with, how does our solution import? How does it uninstall? Things like that, just base stability. So that's always improving. And of course, a couple releases ago, the ability to, choose components and things like that you're going to add to your solution that makes life easier as an ISV. But with this new version, I mean, there's things, virtual entities are really exciting to me. As a marketing platform, ClickDimensions, we generate and collect lots of data for our customers. And one of the challenges that we've seen over time is as our customers' usage grows, the challenge of managing that data natively within Dynamics becomes bigger and bigger. Honestly, in the last 6 years, the performance of CRM, of Dynamics, has improved tremendously, but we still, ideally, don't want to put the burden on our customers to have to manage that data. So virtual entities is really interesting. We won't have anything, I can say, ClickDimensions, we won't have anything as to immediately leverage that when that comes out, but it does open up new possibilities for us in terms of surfacing data around marketing. And then the other thing, which I don't believe is going to be hitting the streets right away, but customer insights. Customer insights kind of as a platform and a service where you are able to pull data from different places, from different types of interactions, and really help to paint the picture of your customers from every different aspect, and leverage AI and machine learning to get predictions. Again, from a marketing ISV standpoint, that's really exciting to us, and that's probably an area that we're going to invest heavily in over the next year or so, and as customer insights becomes available. So those are two of the really big things.
So, you mentioned customer insights. There are some functionality or capabilities of customer insights that overlaps a little bit of what you do. You can use it for segmenting customers and lead scoring and that type of thing. And some of that is stuff you have capabilities in that direction in ClickDimensions. Are you envisioning that would come together at some point and you'd be able to, say, segment your customers and build a list that is then leveraged in ClickDimensions in some way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are ClickDimensions really has a collection of a lot of different features that marketers love, and some of them we have certainly, some of them could certainly use some updating and refresh, and we've had on our roadmaps. And then as we see what Microsoft is doing, we say, you know what? Instead of us building something, how great is it if Microsoft makes kind of that platform available, that make that service available, and then we bring our marketing expertise, having been doing this not just for 6 years, but a lot of the people at ClickDimensions, myself included, have marketing backgrounds going back even further. So bringing that marketing expertise to the tools and the capabilities that Microsoft makes available, I think is going to allow us to make some really exciting things for all of our customers.
What about the app module? Do you ever see yourself leveraging that? Like right now you install ClickDimensions and it's mixed in with the general sitemap, but with the I see the app designer getting much more complete, especially, for example, that mobile can now recognize those apps. You can have offline profiles associated with them. They really are kind of completing that story. Do you ever see yourself packaging up an app module for ClickDimensions for marketing people that just want to use the ClickDimensions capabilities?
Yep, and our product manager is probably going to kill me, but
that's what we want to do. Drag secrets out of you.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a prototype of that already using the app module, and I mean, so if you look back at the history of Microsoft CRM, back years ago, the users who were using Microsoft CRM tended to be people who worked at companies that were very Microsoft centric. They kind of had a certain tolerance for the quirks in Microsoft. You had a lot more power users and people who had kind of grown up in the Microsoft space. But over the last 5, 6, 7 years, as Microsoft has expanded their market share, and this is something we've seen as an ISV, is that you get a lot more users coming to CRM, and this is probably true of any software company, any ISV out there right now. You get a lot more users who their experience with software is, Facebook and all the different software as a service that has only been built in the last 5 years. And so we look, historically our application being natively embedded within Dynamics has been our biggest advantage, but it also puts us kind of in some constraints. So we have to kind of live with the paradigm of the Dynamics interface and how things get done. There's a lot of things you can do with workflows to leverage ClickDimensions and do marketing activities with your workflows, but no normal user who comes to CRM for the first time or Dynamics for the first time wants to open up the workflow designer. Lots of different things like that are kind of legacy from the way things were. And so the app designer, the app modules, and the unified user interface, those are really exciting because that's going to allow us as an ISV to make experiences that are much closer to what newer users are expecting and wanting from their software. When they sit down and make it much more intuitive. Like you said, putting all of the ClickDimensions things in one place in the interface, and almost making it not wizard based exactly, but just kind of clicking through, making it a logical journey through the application. All of those things are open up to us now.
Right. Well, knowing that the marketing entities in CRM, like campaigns, play a role in the ClickDimensions solution, and you're leveraging things like campaign responses, that type of thing. The one thing that jumps out at me is those are kind of the last holdout entities that are not available in mobile or the unified user interface. So
Right, yeah.
knowing, and I guess this is getting to where Microsoft's going with their new marketing solution. What have you heard from the product team, or what do you see happening there? Because is that holding you back in any way? Like, do you have customers who want to use mobile but can't because they can't see their campaign responses on it?
Honestly, I don't think. I mean, most of the marketing professionals who use ClickDimensions, I mean, sure, everybody would love to be able to do some level of executing their marketing from any device that they have handy. But more than anything, it's about consuming metrics. I think for a marketing professional looking at a mobile device, they may want to check in quickly to see how a campaign's going, things like that. Those types of things you can surface in the mobile experience. But for the most part, I think marketing professionals, they're sitting down, they're mapping out, using our campaign automation tool, they're mapping out, a long-running customer journey, they're designing templates, they're crafting content. So I don't think we see too much demand for that mobile experience. Really, in the marketing world, when we hear mobile, most of the time it's about responsive design and things like that for the end recipients or the end targets of the marketing.
Okay. What I think would be huge if they ever open this up is if you could somehow incorporate action cards in those kind of responses, where you're using the ClickDimensions capabilities, generating action cards, so that in that mobile experience for when you're, let's say you're a investment banker and you send out a big capital call, and you have these responses and they pop up on your phone in that today's area. Those kind of things I think would be really powerful. But they haven't opened that up yet. It's still a little black box. So
kind of handoff from the marketing to where the sales person is going to take some action. Yeah.
Right. That's where I would see mobility, especially for marketing, because I don't really foresee many people, outside of someone in marketing on a tablet maybe, but for the salesperson, I don't really see them generating anything in mobile, more just getting alerts and updates and additional contact points. So
there were a lot of questions raised when Microsoft announced a year ago they were partnering with Adobe, and Adobe was going to be their enterprise marketing tool of choice. And I've gone through some of the Adobe training. I think it's kind of become clear kind of who the market for that is, and versus ClickDimensions. So what's your strategy in playing and coexisting with Microsoft and their customers, and with the new relationship with Adobe?
Well, I mean, we definitely were interested when Microsoft made that announcement, but I think that Adobe is at a different level. We are ClickDimensions is really strong in the mid-market space, and without getting into too much specifics, if you look at Adobe, the average implementation cost and timelines, and Adobe has phenomenal, powerful capabilities, but usually that's pretty well beyond what our customers are looking to do. So I think one of the things that I've loved about what Microsoft's been doing with Adobe, and even with talking about their own marketing app, is that it's getting marketers to look at Dynamics and consider it. A lot of times marketers are the last ones that want to go use a Microsoft product, at least historically. So it's been generating lots of buzz, lots of attention, and it's getting people saying, okay, you know what, these are tools that I can scale my business, whether, for mid-market now, and in a few years we're going to be moving up enterprise, we need to work more on customer journey type things. Those conversations are now legitimate, and that attention is great for ClickDimensions, because it's really, 5-6 years ago, that conversation with the marketer was much more difficult when you sat down and showed them Microsoft CRM.
Right, and that Microsoft has to have an official story around that, because Salesforce has had a pretty good story with ExactTarget and Pardot and Salesforce Marketing Cloud and things like that. So having that, but you're right, it gets them in the discussion, but then looking at it, everybody's different, and so many companies, even large ones, are still running things out of Excel. And I talked to a large company that was their marketing tool was sending mail merges through Outlook. And so, for them, going to an Adobe, which is really a tool that's powerful enough to run a marketing company or a large marketing firm with complex approval processes, is worlds ahead of where most businesses that are using Dynamics are.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, it really seems to be more of an agency solution than most enterprise Microsoft CRM customers, or Dynamics 365 customers now, in my experience, their marketing department is not necessarily part and parcel of that engagement. They're more supplemental users, if you will. And, especially in investment banking and some of the larger finance organizations, they have a dedicated marketing arm that is using some type of marketing solution. Where the synergy, I think, is coming with something like ClickDimensions is being able to extend that capability to those groups to work, if they are using a large agency solution, having it dovetail together to where through integration is how I've handled it in the past. So it's just really understanding what their needs are and how that marketing is going to fit for the banker or for the individual user, as opposed to the larger agency, I think.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of the Adobe tools too, like they take deep expertise to be users of them. If you're a marketing professional, usually you have responsibility around one area of the marketing execution, and you're using those tools to do that. Whereas at ClickDimensions, a lot of our customers, they have 2, 3, 4, 5 people on their marketing team, and they wear a lot of different hats, and they need to be able to do something quickly. They need to be able to implement quickly. They need to be able to automate it quickly, and they need to be able to see that return on their marketing investment in a much shorter time frame, and maybe a little more granular than something that's interdepartmental and takes lots of different people, lots of different moving parts to execute.
So one question that I want to get your take on, Matt, is the announcement recently that Microsoft is discontinuing support for TLS 1. I believe it's, what is it, TLS 1.2. 1.2 is the minimum. Yeah. What does that really mean? I mean, because it doesn't really impact anybody who's using a current version of CRM or any of the Microsoft stuff, any of the official stuff. And most of the ISVs, I know Scribe and Kingsway Soft, and I'm sure ClickDimensions has moved beyond that. But who is going to be negatively impacted by the TLS shutting off TLS 1.0?
So for listeners who maybe aren't familiar, TLS is an encryption protocol. Like SSL was the early acronym, and it's really just how is a web application secured using encryption. And if you were to inspect Dynamics Online right now, you would see that they support 3 protocols currently: TLS 1.0, TLS 1.1, and TLS 1.2. So if you are creating an application that's going to connect to that Dynamics environment, your application can speak any one of those 3 protocols right now, and you should be fine interacting with the Dynamics Web Services. What Microsoft has just announced is that beginning with the rollout of the next version 9 of Dynamics 365 Online, they're only going to have TLS 1.2 enabled. So it's the most recent and most secure version of that encryption. So if you are an ISV, or you're maybe within your own company, you've built your own application that connects to Dynamics Online, if you upgrade or you start a new implementation of Dynamics 365, this version 9 that's coming out, you're going to need to make sure your application can understand TLS 1.2 encryption and interact with it. That's the impact for customers. I think so. The email that went out from Microsoft the other day that announced this, people see headlines and they read the first couple sentences and maybe don't look beyond that. So we started getting lots of questions at ClickDimensions, like, is this going to impact me? Is ClickDimensions still going to work? And so the good news is ClickDimensions is able to connect with any Dynamics environment, even if they only use TLS 1.2, if they've disabled TLS 1.0, 1.1. We actually had recently finalized that ourselves, even before Microsoft made this announcement, just because we had customers already with on-premise environments of older versions of Dynamics who didn't want to use the older, less secure protocols. And so we needed to be able to support that connecting to them. So I think the impact is minimal. It'll be for customers who start new on version 9 of Dynamics 365. And when customers upgrade, they'll need to make sure all of their ISV solutions or any in-house apps they've built are able to connect on that protocol.
Yeah, I think anybody who has a fairly recent version of any of the major ISVs are just going to be okay. There's going to be impact for people who have maybe the old version of ADX Studio Portal, somebody who has and hasn't upgraded their Scribe in 3 years. A number of people like that. But if you're up to date, and especially if you're using supported methods out of the box, standard Microsoft stuff, plugins, you don't really have anything to worry about. It's only if you have, it's the ISV tools, it's the custom stuff you've built, especially if it's been a couple years. You probably want to consider renewing your support contract with your ISVs if you don't.
Yeah, and those customers who find themselves in that boat, they're gonna discover when they go to upgrade their online instance, when that becomes available. Hopefully they'll test that first, test all their applications when they do that, and they'll discover our old version of Scribe or whatever it is that they doesn't work. We're gonna have to update.
And they'll probably also have their offline Outlook client stop working and wonder what happened. And then they'll notice that their Outlook based synchronization doesn't work, and they can't see their SharePoint documents because they haven't been listening to us.
Yep. I mean, I think what Microsoft's doing makes a lot of sense, though. It's important, and I think eventually we'll see that across all of Microsoft products that they'll be using TLS 1.2, and then eventually when the next protocol version comes out, they'll move to that. In this day and age, when you hear about things like Equifax, and today I saw something about Whole Foods, it's security's so critical and fast moving that it doesn't make sense to have an application that's using older protocols.
Right. All right.
Well, hey, Joel,
Yeah.
I know we're getting close to time, but since Matt's on the podcast, I have to take this opportunity to reveal a dirty secret in my CRM past.
Okay.
A dirty secret in my CRM past. 7 years ago, I was a product manager of an implementation. I was a customer, right? And we had some optimization issues. Our environment was slow.
Were you my customer back then?
No, it wasn't. I was tasked to do some research to find out how we can make it faster. So lo and behold, I was on the ICU MSCRM blog.
Oh yeah.
Found an article on optimization. My dirty secret is I cut and pasted that into a document, formatted it nice, and I looked like a hero for a day.
And you got a promotion, right?
So I have to admit, I have to own up to it. All these years later, it's a heavy weight on my chest, and I just want to get that off there. But
Sean, I forgive you, but you definitely owe me a couple of beers in at the next.
Say 25. Say 25 ClickDimensions.
That's right.
That's right. All right. So how about some lightning round questions for you, Matt? What are your top 3 apps on your phone?
Top 3 apps on my phone. Really? We're going to do this?
Yeah. Of course we are.
Okay, well, Solitaire. That's number 1.
The Microsoft version?
No. Actually, no. And I have an iPhone, too. I hate to admit. Got rid of my Windows phone.
There is a Microsoft Solitaire for iPhone.
Oh, well, there is?
Yeah, there is.
Maybe I'll have to go to that. Although I got a long streak going with my current Solitaire app. TripIt is number 2. I do a fair amount of traveling, and so being able to see all my flights and hotels and all that kind of stuff in there. And then, I'd say Yelp, because I'm always looking for a good restaurant.
Do you use Outlook or the iOS Mail?
I use the Outlook application, actually.
Okay, good. What are your top, say, 2 or 3 apps or tools in the XRM Toolbox?
Oh, man. Well, what's crazy is the XRM Toolbox is it's like the Borg. It's assimilating everything now. I was telling, actually, just yesterday, pointing somebody to the XRM Toolbox, and I'm like, I was giving them a list of some tools, and I was going to list them separately, and then I went and looked at the latest XRM Toolbox, so they're all in there now. So Ribbon Workbench is now in the XRM Toolbox. Sitemap Editor, of course. Oh, geez, I don't know. And all the rest of them I probably have used just as much.
The one I used yesterday that I really appreciate the updates they've done to is the Entity Relationship Diagram Generator.
I was going to mention that
one
I used
because
it yesterday as well.
What I love about it is I had to give somebody quick and dirty documentation showing how 5 or 6 entities were related, and I'd used the one in the SDK, which you had to build the solution first. You had to enter in the text string with all the entities. This, you check the boxes, and you can delete things from it. You can reposition the lines so they don't all run together. Takes a little bit of work to get it to look nice, but it's much easier than using the Visio tool was.
And the metadata browser that's in there, it's similar to the enterprise relationship diagrams. It's just like to be able to connect to an environment, compare all the metadata.
Yeah. Now you had an interesting experience at the last MVP renewal. you thought you were out for a while and sent everybody "It's been great working with you," and then you got a renewal notification. That was like the most angst-filled weekend I remember. We were all hanging on there like, "Oh, Matt's gonna die," and like, "Oh no, Matt's here, Matt's back." Oh, we all said nice things about you. And,
I know.
It was like going to your own funeral.
Exactly. It was like, it was so nice. I think, I didn't engineer that on purpose. It was so nice. So I had been an MVP for 11 years. I kind of thought, had a nice run. Every year when renewal comes around, I'm like, am I going to get renewed? And it was kind of like a midlife crisis. Every year when that renewal date's coming up, I'm always like, I'm not going to get renewed, and I'm going to move on with my life. It's been great. And then you don't get the email, or you get an email that says, you haven't been renewed this year. And I seriously spent like a weekend, navel gazing, doing some heavy introspection. Like, what do I do with my life now? And I wrote that email, and I got so many well wishes and people. Kuba, I love Kuba, especially kind of lost it. He's like, if Matt's not an MVP, then so I enjoyed all that. It was like my own funeral. Some people were happy, some people were sad, some people were angry.
I think once you announced that you had been renewed, I think my comment was, I take back all those nice things I said about you, Matt.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You save those up for the real.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're doing your part. You're appearing on podcasts to help you with your MVP activity. So we're helping you so that doesn't happen again next year.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I got one more lightning round question for him.
All right, go.
This lightning round is kind of slowed down. What's like?
I'm not very lightning.
Ready? All right. You can buy one motorcycle. Only one. Here's your three choices.
Oh, geez.
1951 Vincent Black Lightning. 1932 Indian Model 403. Or 1975 Ducati 860 GTE.
Oh, the Ducati, hands down.
There you go. All right, very nice.
Yeah. 70s era Ducati. Are you kidding me? I can grow like a mustache and wear a leisure suit and ride that thing around.
I can see it now. Well, you do the distinguished gentleman rides, right? So
yeah.
You would look very distinguished wearing the leisure suit on your Ducati.
There you go. Waxed mustache, yeah.
That would be awesome.
Very cool. Very cool.
That was a great question, Sean. Thank you.
I had to throw you a fun one.
All right. So, you got any more beans to spill about new toys, new shiny stuff coming from ClickDimensions?
Yeah. Any exclusives?
Make your Mark product manager sweat.
Yeah, we are working on the teleporter.
Nice.
Coming out.
Excellent.
No, you guys are probably familiar with our campaign automation tool, which is kind of the centerpiece of our application, and we're adding more and more things in there. But we are working on. A lot of things are things that people just have been wanting for a long time, and honestly, we get so many feature requests, and we're working on so many things. But given some like pre-baked templates for campaign automations, as well as pre-baked email templates, kind of best practices kind of things. So those are coming. We talked earlier about customer insights. We're doing some of our own improvements to the scoring platform. So that's pretty cool stuff to allow scoring on lots of different things and make it really flexible and degrading scores and things like that. So we got I'm not giving anything away, but at clickdimensions.com/roadmap, we lay it all out there. We're very transparent.
Nice. Okay, so help me with the last slide of my CRMUG Summit session on Voice of the Customer survey. What are the biggest reasons why somebody might choose to use ClickDimensions surveys instead of Voice of the Customer? I'll tell you what I got. Number one, you can get more than 2,400 responses in a day, so your higher volumes. Number two, you can send a more attractive invitation email.
Yeah.
And number 3, well, those are the big two, because along with that, more responses, you can get larger quantities of data and have more actionable data from that. The actual designer, I like what Microsoft has done with the designer of Voice of the Customer. It's a very powerful tool. It's not very well documented, and as you see, if you read CRM Tip of the Day in the last week, I've got about 4 tips out of things that are not in the documentation that are in some cases some pretty big things. But I like the tool, but it's not built for the high volume marketing survey. And I think a customer satisfaction survey is different than a marketing survey. You're not going to survey as many people. You're not going to necessarily need to be a marketing message with this flashy templates. But a marketing survey is going to be. I'm thinking I think it was a mutual customer we had that was doing a survey that they were giving away a Ford F-150 truck, and they got millions of responses to that survey because people wanted to have a chance to win the truck. And so you would never do that with Voice of the Customer. What else am I missing here?
Our survey designer is dead simple to use. If you want to put together a survey really fast, in 5 minutes, you can have a survey, and you can also do some pretty advanced things. You can do skip logic, things like that. I think the designer, personally, is a lot easier to use than Voice of the Customer. But I also think that because the surveys in ClickDimensions are kind of tied in, like one of the things you can, if you're doing an email campaign, maybe not your newsletter, and you've got a link to a survey that you have out there, we're going to report all those metrics back, and you can see it in the context of your email campaign as well, so you can see how many people actually responded to the survey as a result of getting your newsletter. All of that kind of, tying together all of those metrics around your marketing efforts. And you can see if somebody visited the survey but didn't fill it in.
It's just part of the campaign, and certain things in the campaign can trigger a survey. So that makes a lot of sense, and they can coexist, because I have customers that are using Voice of the Customer and ClickDimensions, and there's some things that Voice of the Customer is a better fit for. Like I have a case that I close a case, I want a survey to go to them. Well, since your case is on CRM and Voice of the Customer can be triggered easily by a workflow, that's, in my mind, a no-brainer to use Voice of the Customer. Where if it's a more complex scenario, higher volume, or something as part of a campaign, then doing ClickDimensions surveys is good. So they really can coexist without detracting from each other. Yep.
And I think that's, again, back to Microsoft. The more that they talk about marketing, the more little things that they're introducing, it's it's good for ClickDimensions and for all of our customers, because there's just more options available for marketers.
All right. Well, Matt, if people want to read your writing or follow you on social media, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
So my Twitter handle is MattNC, as in North Carolina. So I'm never able to move.
If you ever move, you gotta make all your friends again.
Yeah. So Twitter, and then the ClickDimensions blog. I contribute to that. Used to be one of the only people. We used to have two or three people back in the day, and I did a lot of writing on the blog. But now I'm just one of many contributors. But blog.clickdimensions.com. You can see me there as well.
All right. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks for joining us and making our listeners happy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun, and I'm going to go have that beer now.
This has been CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast, with Business Solutions MVPs George Dubinsky, Joel Lindstrom, and Sean Tabor. This podcast is a production of Dynamic Podcasts, LLC. Follow us on Twitter at CRM Audio. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, or any place else that fine podcasts are available. You can email us at voice@crm.audio with questions or topic suggestions.